I'm going to record, and then we go to share screen here. So, boom, 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 boom. I'm looking at our Canvas site for Module 5. Here we go. First draft of critical analysis essay. I really, really appreciate you all bearing with me with my lack of tech savvy. I only just on Monday figured out how to do this in a superior fashion. So now I've created an assignment for your essay, and it's up here in at the top right corner where it says submit assignment. That's where I'd like you to please submit your papers in PDF fashion, because that seems to be the format that's easiest for me to then edit for you all. Please do not email them to me in that case, okay? The other thing I want to show you is, so next week is Module 6, and we are going to be reading a book by, I just want to get her first name correct. I believe her name is Sherry Kimmerer. She is a Native American author and botanist. And she wrote a book called Braiding Sweetgrass, which I just really found wonderful. And so that's what we'll be reading from next week. It's just, these are a couple chapters. They're nonfiction essays about a variety of topics about Native American relations to the land and to plants, talking about, Native American culture as well, and distinguishing it from contemporary American capitalist culture. And I think she's a wonderful writer. I think you will enjoy reading her. I don't think you'll have any issues with that. 2 weeks from today, again, just by the end of the day, your final draft of your critical analysis paper will be due. I'll get you your edits in the meantime, and then you can fix them up for me. That day, I'll talk about that reading later, okay? All right, does anybody have any questions about anything at this point? About the papers, blah, blah. Everybody okay? You're all good on the reading? Yeah, good, cool. So it's weird, I'm at home teaching everybody, grading stuff, reading stuff. I'm not on campus, so I don't get the buzz. But I hear there's some buzz, everybody. Some shit went down.
Are we talking about Monday?
Yeah. What the hell happened, everybody? What happened on Monday to the first year class? Anybody want to tell me what's going on here? Duncan, are you drinking beer? That looks suspicious. What happened? What should I know? Give me
There was a visiting artist, and I think they meant well, but it was just a really bad look. Because it didn't feel like, here, let's talk to an artist who's working as an artist so you can learn from an artist who's working for a living. It kind of felt like, here, please sympathize with a cop for an hour. It felt a little strange.
Okay. Anybody else?
There's no one in my house right now, so I can talk very briefly.
There we go. He's back. So you want to say something? You going to tell me about Monday?
I wanted to say really fast, it was just a poor decision on multiple people's parts for, first of all, not warning multiple other staff of what was going to happen. When I talked to Laura Birdsall about it, she said that she had only gotten the notification of that happening on Monday the Friday before, so there was limited time to be able to make the situation better in any way. And it was just I at one point, while during it, I had to completely check out because there were a lot of topics that the guest speaker brought up that me and multiple other people could not mentally handle. Like there was no like there should have at least been some kind of content warning for what he was going to talk about, both just in general and what he was saying in his poems that he read. It's just like there was no warning at all, and there were a lot of like very sensitive topics that were brought up in uh it just wasn't good. Like a lot of people had to leave during that, and a lot of people were upset by it because those topics were brought up. And it also sucks because it was mandatory too. They made it mandatory for FYE to go to this event. And the fact that it was not only mandatory, but there was no warning for what they were talking about, it like they should not be upset at all by people having to leave because of what they were talking about. It was just really unfair to the students in a number of ways.
Okay.
They made us say thank you afterwards.
Yeah, I had checked out by then, so I didn't
hear what Mackenzie said. I'm sorry.
They made us say thank you afterwards. Like they made us unmute our mics and say thank you for that afterwards.
I didn't go to it, so
And now you wish you had.
Lucky.
Yeah, I also didn't go. I forgot to.
Whenever I read something saying first year mandatory, I'm like, absolutely not. Like, it's not part of my work. But if anyone could summarize, like, I mean, this has been a summarize, but like, what, like a cop was on there? Excuse me, what? Like,
He's a poet, but he was also a cop. And I think if they like
a cop poet? Are you kidding?
Yeah, and all of his poetry was about. Okay, so the thing is, I fully agree that if you have like his job is traumatic, so to use poetry as an outlet for that, like for anyone who like if there's a firefighter who has to see some graphic stuff and wants to write poetry to get that out of his head and express that, great. But if you're going to read it out to a bunch of college freshmen, you should give a little bit of a warning before you read really graphic poetry, because he read the first like 2 poems and I dissociated like that and it was gone and I couldn't listen just because it was like too much.
Wait,
When you think,
was he like a white cop? Did they get a white cop?
No,
he wasn't a white cop, but
Okay.
No, he's black.
That would have been crazy. Like,
that would have been straight up terrible.
Elena, I have a question. You said graphic? Was his poetry describing the violence he sees on the job?
There were certain encounters he had with people that were very dark, or like scenes that he was like called into, and they were very dark, and morbid, and he just described them in like a very poetic but graphic and dark way. There was also, anytime there was a woman in any of his poems, they were so sexualized. It was so strange. He described someone's boobs as pendulous breasts.
Yo, that was my favorite part. It was so fucking funny.
And I think she was an addict too. I think the whole point was that she had like a drug addiction, and he was describing like meeting an addict, and he described like the body of this woman. It was like, that's so out of character and
Dude,
gross.
It was so fucking bad. I was sitting there. The second he said that, I turned him off and I started doing like homework on the side. I couldn't.
Is this recorded?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is,
And there was like a poem where it was like a lady sitting on a bus, and he starts describing her as like, oh my god, this is like the beautiful Lilith and all this stuff.
Lilith?
I was like, she's a lady on a bus. Stop it.
Wait, was he reading poetry outside? Because I heard
He was chilling in a park
outside.
Couple things. So it sounds like you all are not objecting necessarily to the fact that someone like this comes and speaks, but you're objecting to the way it was, if I understand Felix correctly, to the way it was not prepared, right?
Yes.
Presented. There are 2 problems here, it sounds like. On one hand, this is a cop and all that represents. Also that this was just bad art. That's sort of
It's not that it was necessarily like
now
low quality art. It's just that that kind of stuff really needs a warning. It just wasn't. It was a lot. The whole thing was a lot, and then everyone in like the chat started asking all these really intense questions, and he didn't answer them well.
Yeah,
Like
it was-
someone,
No, he would
someone
laugh at these
asked-
questions.
someone asked about his opinion on the Breonna Taylor case, and he said, "I don't have enough information to have an opinion on it."
Mm.
And I was
you're
just like,
cop.
It's been
I do
months,
have
and
information
something
to think
huge
about
within
it,
your
and
job
does it?
description just happened. Like,
Mm.
you need to be educated. Everyone else had the time to become educated enough to have an
He's
opinion,
a
and he just
cop. He
didn't.
should know.
Oh, one part that I really enjoyed in like the loosest possible sense, was when someone told him the statistics about cops, like 4 out of 10 of them being domestic abusers, and he was like, "Oh, all my friends are good though." Like, yeah, sure.
He literally
I mean,
used
I
the
actually-
phrase, he used the phrase that there were bad apples, as in not following up with the rest of the statement of
Yeah.
a like bad apples ruin the bunch. Like, he's just like, oh, just a few bad apples. It's like, no, that's not what that metaphor is talking about.
Jesus Christ, Elva, I don't know what the hell that means. You can't tell me things like that. I am ancient, everybody. I turn 49 next week. Don't do that to me.
It's okay. It's just a keyboard smash. We do
Just a
it.
keyboard smash.
Okay,
It
thank
just means like,
But
Also, okay. So the
classic
thing is,
form of
the thing that like made this almost worse is that there was supposed to be a different artist,
Yeah, I know.
and then they like couldn't make it last second,
Well,
and
they
then
were
they
going to be
picked
paired.
him.
It was going to be the two of them, and the one dropped out. That's my understanding. Well,
Wait,
hang on.
I have,
And the other one,
I have a question.
Yeah,
What
go
was
for
the so Micah set this up, correct?
Yeah.
So what were they trying to do? Like was it just an experience, like an
No,
art?
no. Okay, I heard this from someone else, but apparently the first guest speaker was out and they didn't hear from them for like a week. And so there's like one drawing teacher who like arranged, like kind of panic arranged the cop to come in to speak instead. And that happened. And then she made like some apology afterwards. But really, she could have just waited instead.
Well, hang on. I want to zero in on what Max is saying. Max says above, I think regardless of how it was prepared, everyone was given it, cops should not have been a guest speaker. So I have a question. Are there people who should not be invited to speak at MICA?
Yeah.
I think
Why?
for their first visiting artist talk, especially for the first one, and especially at this point in time, they shouldn't have had a police officer.
Well, that means you're disagreeing with Max because you're saying that they are allowed, but just not the first one.
No, I feel like just at this point in time, like I feel like during at least like if it was years before this, then maybe. But especially during like this school year, it just comes off really badly. It makes it sound like they're trying to make us sympathize with cops.
Hey, no
I-
doubt.
Yeah.
The way this timing was awful. It was rolled out miserably. Like
Yeah, and it's just
guilty. But I'm a
It makes-
philosopher. I'm interested in the bigger question here that Max is posing.
Of not I personally don't, I agree with him. Like, I don't think that there should be any kind of like cop showing up as a guest speaker at MICA, because like after that entire event happened, like looking at the student feed on the MICA app, there were multiple people bringing up like their personal reasons for why they were against it, and there were a lot of people that had personal trauma with cops, and they are extremely against cops because of what some cops have done to them. Like the simple act of bringing a cop into what would be considered a safe academic setting to people that are extremely sensitive to that, it's not good. It's not good to put people in that position and then also make it mandatory for people to
That's
show
what I
up.
want to press on. I want to press on this. Do you expect Micah to be safe? That's what I want to know. Is college supposed to be safe?
Yeah.
It should be.
I mean,
It's
yes.
supposed to be.
In
Why?
theory, yes.
In theory, it is. In practice, not really.
No, but why should it be safe?
I think it's supposed to be safe, but I think we should allow room to be uncomfortable. Sometimes in art school, it can feel like I'm in a bubble of art school students, which I don't have a problem with. Like, I like it, but it sometimes feels detached from the real world where like there can be uncomfortable situations and all of that. But I do think art school is a good, like before, like for younger kids that are going into college right away, like like a good step into the real world, if that makes sense.
I do think though there was that speaker that was at orientation. It was like the really cool guy, and he said just because you're uncomfortable doesn't mean you're unsafe. So I think people we're
Yeah.
more than allowed to be unsafe or uncomfortable. Sorry, you're allowed to like get into situations outside of your comfort zone, but I think there should still be an assumption that you are generally safe when you are in a MICA class or on a MICA campus.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
the thing is, like what Alina just said, like there's a difference between feeling safe and feeling comfortable. You are not supposed to feel comfortable when you're going into an academic setting. You're supposed to be uncomfortable because you're learning new things that defy what you were previously taught, what you previously knew. It's supposed to, like, that is how you're supposed to learn, by like questioning what you already know. But with the concept of being safe, it's like I don't think I would want to go into any kind of setting, especially one that I'm paying thousands of dollars to be at, which I'm not even physically there, but like mentally there, I guess. I don't want to be paying thousands of dollars to go into a setting that I feel unsafe in. Like I I am depending on this school to keep me safe. Like if we were all on campus right now, they would be responsible for our physical safety.
Yeah,
And
there's a reason
and
that there's campus security. They
yeah,
want it
there's
to
a
be safe.
reason for that. And even
Yeah.
though we're not physically on campus, there is still the inherent need that we should be kept emotionally safe. Like they should not, like, yes, students should be pushed out of their comfort zone, but they should not be put in danger. There were a lot of people that were put in a horrible mental space because of who they invited and because what he was talking about. I was put in a horrible mental space because when he started talking about suicide and rape, I had to leave. I cannot stand people talking about that, especially when I'm not prepared to hear about it.
So
I
it's not just
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to
Like-
completely check out. I just straight up left.
Yeah, I'd just rather not. Yeah. Like I already get those for free. I'm not gonna get it again for like thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Already get that. I can do. Yeah, I already get that in my life.
Yeah, another one of my friends on the student feed on the Micah app had said, like, why am I paying for a glorified Twitch stream? Like, this is not like I was not this is not the education that I'm paying for. This is a guy that I don't want to be here talking about things that I don't want to hear about, and I'm paying for it.
all right.
I think the thing is like it's a visiting artist lecture. So what I would want to see out of that is someone to be able to talk about their career as an artist. He doesn't quite have a career as an artist. His main career was being a teacher and then being a cop. And he writes some poetry on the side to deal with trauma. But we don't like I wanted to be able to hear from someone because I've been at like other programs where there's a visiting artist and they like bring in someone who makes a living off of art and they're able to tell you how they've been able to be successful by being an artist and like their development as an artist. He just kind of went, I write some poems on the side.
Yeah, I don't I don't have a problem with like actually I was like confused about all this because I was like half asleep during the discussion. It feels like I slept through like a tornado or something, but like I was confused. I thought like when I looked back at the student feed the next day, it was all like stuff about like screw cops or like all cops are bastards or something like that. And I was like, oh, so people are mad because of like a Black Lives Matter movement. But now that I'm hearing it, it's more like like there's a lot of heavy issues being talked about and there wasn't any warning. And I don't and I was like questioning why they had that meeting in the first place. Like this dude was a cop who writes poems and like he just sat there and read poems, and what was the point of that whole thing? It's like something you do because it was mandatory, but it's like, what did we actually learn? Like I guess if he was like did art for like, you know, if he like did identified more with art than like being a cop or like a side poet, then like it'd make more sense as to why the meeting was held. But like I don't know, it just felt weird.
What would be far more interesting is if he was a former cop that was a full-time artist and talked about how his art relates to his previous job. But since it's his current job and it's his job comes before his art, that's what he made perfectly clear by still being a cop and having poetry on the side. Like, if it was the other way around, as in that was previously something he did and that's why his art related to it, then that would make more sense. But he's not a full-time artist, which is what doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's like a side hustle.
Yeah, no, I would love to see someone who's a painter who used to be a cop and like they made a lot of paintings about their experiences. That would be stunning. That would be amazing. But instead, it was just this dude, and it was just all of the wrong things at the same time. And it puts a really bad light onto the visiting artist lectures because it was the first one. So it just makes it seem like they're all going to be bad. And I know they're not all going to be bad, but like this was just so bad.
Well, maybe he won't be a cop for long. Listen, I can't speak to the art issue because I'm not an artist, but I hear you all loud and clear. I'm kind of shocked they couldn't reach for a practicing artist because there's so many affiliated with Micah. Just hell, I would have gone on and talked about my book for an hour. You know, I'm not even an artist. But regardless, I'm really more interested in the other issues you guys are talking about. And I want you to help me with something. You know, I admit I'm from a different generation, but I see part of my job to prepare you for a world that is kind of outrageous. I don't know if you guys are so busy. I don't know if you had a chance to watch the debate the other night, but that was traumatic. You know, I mean, you haven't been ensconced in the campus yet, but at Micah, we talk about the students. I don't talk about it. The students tell me they call this thing the Micah bubble. They talk about the Micah bubble, and juniors say to me, I want to see beyond the Micah bubble. I actually had, in my political theory class last year, I had some students ask, can you bring a Trump supporter in? like a, what do you call it? Like a field trip in reverse, like bring a Trump supporter in so we can like ogle and ask questions, you know? So what I'm really struggling with is this idea of safety. Of course we want to keep you safe. God, I mean, but we also have to, you know, look, no one causes more trauma, everybody, than good art, right? Good art gets in your fucking face and shakes you down. And I don't know. I mean, so that's what I'm wrestling with, you know, like, how do we protect you? You know, I'm not sure how safe it should be. I don't know. I really don't know. What do you guys think?
Well,
Any feedback for me?
I feel like the bubble thing is like true. Like you shouldn't like keep us within like a bubble. You shouldn't keep us sheltered, but there is an assumption that we're not going to be put in direct danger.
Duncan?
I was going to say that I felt like this cop thing was good practice for me, at least. In terms of experiences. Okay, so I didn't attend. Obviously, I think a lot of people didn't attend, and I think it's important to see. Oh, this is a police officer. This is probably something I'm not interested in, and something that might be offensive to me. I'm not going to give it my time. So I'm not going to give it any energy, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I mean, my instinct is to push back on statements like Max's. I mean, free speech. How are you going to decide? This is the free speech issue, right, everybody? This is the problem. When you start to say that certain people should not be allowed to speak, then are you on a slippery slope? You know, I mean, I've gotten in this debate with your provost, you know, about bringing, you know, certain speakers in. Like there are these right-wing speakers out there that are dying to come speak at colleges. They're too expensive, but they're dying to come, and colleges are struggling with what to do. Do you bring them or not? You know? And I go back and forth. Max says, I feel like giving a cop platform to speak is part of the problem with it. By giving a cop someone whose job directly supports and enforces an unjust system that's based to speak is wrong. Yeah. Someone
I
who
want to, I want to
lacks
say real
access to a
fast,
wider platform. Good
I
point.
want to say real fast the fact that you called, like, you said, like, it's free speech, which technically it is in a legal way, but like literally it is not free speech because we're paying for it. It is paid speech. We are paying for this speech. I don't want to hear that. Like, I don't think
Yeah,
there's a ton of students that don't want to hear about that.
I know, but Felix, it's not my job to give you everything you want to hear, right?
Yeah, but there is a difference from hearing about topics that are a little bit uncomfortable and topics that are psychologically triggering to some people.
I hear that's the point I hear you on. What I would say to you, Felix, is I think it's my job to challenge you. It's my job to introduce you to texts you would not and speakers you would not normally hear. But where to draw the line on mental trauma, that's something I'm unsure about. I'll be completely honest with you. But that's the issue I see. One other point, when you do come to Micah, and if when you step on the corner of Mount Royal, there will be a cop there. There are cops on North Avenue, and they're all over the place, right? So you're certainly not going to avoid them.
But we're not forced to listen to them talk about their trauma.
Yeah, like it's not the point of like seeing a cop like that. It's just like it should have been. I mean, as we all know, like it should have been a trigger warning. Like it's actually so surprising that like no one gave a trigger warning, especially like since we're in art school. Like we are like trigger warning like queens. Like
Why? Whoa,
honestly,
whoa.
I just
Yeah.
think it should be mandatory. No, not mandatory. I said non-mandatory. Like it should be your choice to go or not.
Duncan,
I
sorry.
was
Yes.
gonna say, ultimately, it is your choice, and like I'm easily triggered as well, and that's why I avoided it at all costs. Like there was no way I was going to tune into this cop because I just knew where it was going. So I don't know.
Not everyone has that type of mental fortitude. Because Micah is coming from a place of authority, if they state that it is mandatory to attend, more people will naturally attend because Micah, the school, the institution, told them to attend. There's also a very large difference between, let's say, if Herman, if you want to talk about mental trauma, right, and where to draw the line, I would say that so personally, I have very bad experiences with cops. I get nervous whenever a cop is near me. I'm like from New York City. One of my friends got arrested at a BLM protest for drawing with chalk. She was held overnight. She's like harmless. She's like shorter than me. And she was like 16. She's harmless. And so I don't have good experience with cops, but nothing like I would say that was traumatic. But for some people, hearing a cop openly speak, not just speak, but speak about topics that are very sensitive, because there's definitely a split between older generation and the younger generation, which I would say the younger generation is much more aware of mental illnesses and mental trauma and troubles with people and their mental health, which is why Micah has like a big wellness department, and because we're such a liberal school, I feel like Micah should definitely have a better awareness of mental health. And because they invited someone who openly talked about suicide and rape, and they didn't warn any of the students, and considering that we are still, some states are still being affected by COVID, there's a lot of compounding stress that's happening. And because there was no warning and the institute said it was mandatory to attend, it exposed a lot of students to a very unsafe situation that definitely could have been prevented.
Definitely. I think part of the breakdown is because we're on Zoom. If this were on campus, there would have been multiple people walking, saying to organizer, consulting. But so many of us are isolated on our own, trying to operate under our best judgment. It's challenging. Someone else was speaking. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was me. I was just gonna say that I think if and I don't really think this is appropriate just as who I am as a person, but if you wanted an answer that accepted the truth that people should take in other viewpoints, it's the fact that there were goals laid out for this presentation by Michelle and by other people at the beginning of the discussion, even before students started asking questions about the ethics of policing, that were what is it like to, what is it specifically in Baltimore, what is the culture around policing, to how do we fix the problems of policing? And it became that we were listening to, for a lot of people and in practice and in theory, the enforcers and of a lot of trauma and injustice, and that is the system working as it should, as it was designed to. So it was people asking, where do we go from here? Well, let's ask who's caused the hurt. And that felt like it felt like if the goals were, what does it look like in Baltimore around issues of policing? It doesn't seem like that's the voice to uplift.
Yeah. He didn't seem prepared to talk about that for sure. Yeah.
And also there's this subcontext of this white woman facilitator facilitating and kind of filtering the comments that were coming through, especially where moments where she would put in her own opinions on the matter. Like that was something that also really got me too, because it's like white women historically have benefited from police brutality and have just used it as a way to threaten people of color. And when you have such a large when so many of the student population are people of color, I question that judgment, you know what I mean? Especially if you're bringing it from a standpoint of we're bringing in this cop to give you a different point of view, because it's not only sorry, like my brain's all jumbled up from like different points that I was thinking as we were talking. It's like not only just like trying to make somebody uncomfortable and trying to bring out a different point of view to the student population, but it's also a thing of hold up. It's also a thing of this person is representing the institution. When you bring on this person and you say, hey, let's give this person our respect, let's give this person our time, it isn't just like, oh, we're trying to like make you a little bit uncomfortable and like show you different point of views. It's like, no, we also respect this person and their views and what they're bringing to this talk. So those are my comments on that I've been holding for a while.
I can tell you right now, thank you. That was excellent, Naima. I can tell you right now, like it can never and should never be the case that when someone comes to a college, that's like a de facto stamp of approval, that the college respects that speaker. That should never be the case. And that can never be the case, because I'm thinking about the awful people that colleges bring, all the time. And so that is a perception that definitely needs to be shaken free. Anybody else?
I was gonna say, like, it was not just like absolutely everything else that happened. It was the fact that there were people asking questions, like that we were asked to ask questions in the chat. That's what we were told to do. And when people started doing that and asking questions, literally Michelle only handpicked the ones that she wanted to bring up. Yeah. She handpicked them. She did not read off all of them to the speaker. And that's what upsets me. Like, obviously not as much as some of the other things, but it definitely upsets me equally, because it's like they promote this idea that they care about our voices and they care about our mental health, and then they completely ignore both of those things.
Gotcha. Anybody else? Hey, I see Mickey is with us. Mickey. Yo, Mickey. Maybe not. Kendall.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Kendall. How you doing?
Doing good.
In the future, just let me know when you come late. I saw you there, but in the future, so I know to get you, Kendall.
Yeah, my bad. Just having connection issues this morning.
Not at all, but I think Mickey is just fronting. So, all right. Thank you very much. I thought that was really interesting to hear. And, you know, I'm very sorry that this experience was so difficult and so challenging. I mean, 2020 has been such a shit show. I just can't get over it. You know, it's been such a disaster in so many different ways, and it's like the world is falling apart. And so
It feels like a reality show.
it is terrible. But let's talk about apples, because why the fuck not, right? I mean, what else are we gonna do? Free speech, apples, woohoo! Seriously though, there's two issues I want to bring up and related to your text that we read for last week, Michael Pollan. There's two interesting issues. One of them we kind of ended with was this idea of the frontier. Because the myth of Johnny Appleseed is a frontier myth. It's an American frontier myth. We kind of pulled that one apart last week, so I'm not going to really get into it too much more. But I wonder if anybody, and I do realize we have a couple of international students here, so I wonder if the Americans in the house, since, you know, Michael Pollan's talking about the American experience, the American frontier. Does anybody know any other frontier myths? I know I had to be told a couple when I was in like 4th grade. I don't know what you guys learn anymore. You guys didn't know any frontier myths? Wow. Crickets.
The dude with the raccoon hat. I don't know his name, but the dude with the raccoon hat.
Davy Crockett?
Doesn't even know.
Yeah.
Davy Crockett.
The thing is, I don't know which ones are legends or like which ones are myths and which ones are true.
Davy
That's the
Crockett.
issue.
I don't even know the myth around him, but he was an actual figure. He lived in Kentucky, and then he ended up dying in the Alamo.
Oh, Paul Bunyan is what is
Paul Bunyan. That's a good one. What's the story of Paul Bunyan?
He's just like a big guy with an axe, and he cuts down trees because he's like a giant or something.
He's a giant. And who's his companion? The best part of the fucking myth.
He's got a big old axe, right?
An axe.
Excuse me?
Babe.
Babe, the blue ox. Ava, you left out that the ox was blue. What the hell? Paul Bunyan and Babe and the blue ox. And what was he doing? I have no idea. I can imagine.
Cutting down entire trees.
Cutting down, no, Felix, he was cutting down swaths of forest, right? He's so big. It's not one. And then there's any other frontier myths? We have the Old West in general. Building.
Yeah, there was one I was trying to think of for the Old West, but I can't remember it off the top of my name. I remember that Johnny Depp was in a movie about it.
Jonah Hex is one of them, right?
I'm sorry, Alina?
Is Jonah Hex one of them?
Jonah Hex?
I don't know. I've heard the name. I don't remember.
No, I'm sorry. I don't know that.
Oh, Buffalo Bill. I'm a fool.
Buffalo Bill. Good. I have a question for y'all. What is the legacy of the frontier? Do we see, is there such a thing as frontier culture?
It was the Lone Ranger. I just looked it up. The movie The Lone Ranger. That's
Love it. Lone Ranger.
I just couldn't remember the name of it.
Anybody have any thoughts about this, how frontier culture endures? Maybe I should ask this. Let me do this first. This is going to sound weird, but I think you might understand me. I hope you do. What are frontier values? Because myths express a value, right? Lone Ranger, Johnny Appleseed, Babe the Blue Ox. No, Bunyan, sorry. They express values. They express American values. What are those values, everybody?
Deforestation.
Deforestation. Well, that's a little literal.
Wealth.
Kendall?
Wealth.
Wealth, prosperity. Oh,
Expansion.
Naima has it there. Pick yourself up by your bootstraps. The Donald Trump lie of life. Yes. Sorry. Elena,
He's just saying gross.
I didn't hear what you said.
Like expansion, like just kind of taking more land.
Expansion. What else? What does the Lone Ranger convey? Yeah, individualism. That's a big one. Where do you see this individualism? Well, we have the pull your up by your bootstraps mythology. Where else do you see individualism in American culture? In our Constitution? How so? Where?
Everybody's individual, unalienable rights.
Right? Individual inalienable rights. Mhm. Anybody else? I'm thinking about, I mean, of course, there is this individualism that is deeply American, and I think our international students will probably notice this when they get here, if they ever, when we arrive. But I think there's one part of our Constitution that kind of screams frontier more than any other. Like, you know what I mean? There's one of the amendments, it's one amendment in the Bill of Rights that really seems to scream frontier. Do you know what I mean? Guns, baby. There we go. Second Amendment. Second Amendment. Why do we need an AR-15? Huh? Why do we need an assault rifle? Tell me. Come on.
Defend ourselves.
We better tell our international students now before they get here. You got to pick
defend
up
ourselves.
your assault rifle in duty free before you arrive at the MICA campus. Why do you need an assault rifle?
Needing a gun, an assault rifle specifically, a lot of people would answer with to defend yourself, to defend your property, since you have a right to defend your property and your body. But I mean, as far as other guns go, like a regular like hunting rifle, that would be hunting for your own food and being able to having the ability to take care of yourself in that way. Because in West Virginia, there are a lot of people that hunt and they eat the game that they kill because that's like one of the better ways for them to be able to get food to survive off of. But that's a niche thing in America. There's not that many places where hunting is a necessity. Mostly people just care about their guns because they like the idea of being able to defend themselves and pretending they're the bigger person, they're intimidating, they shouldn't be messed with because they have this gun that's capable of killing hundreds of people.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, for hunting, I get the rifle. That makes sense. But you don't need, by the way, when I say assault rifle, I mean semi-automatic. You can fire off a whole slew of bullets in a matter of seconds. Do you need that to kill a deer? Do you need that to hunt a deer? How about a squirrel? There'll be no squirrel left when you're done. There's nothing to eat if you use a semi-automatic rifle. So why a semi-automatic rifle? I'm going to press on that sore a little bit more. Anybody want to expand on what Felix had to say?
what are you saying? Like why someone should have one?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I mean, like, just kind of like what Felix said, like defending yourself. I mean, like, I grew up in downtown Phoenix, so like everyone has a gun. Like Arizona's like gun central. So like I even like people that went to art school with me, like they have guns. So like here it's just so normal to have a gun. I don't really not really for hunting. I think just like people are like kind of like wild here. Like I don't know. So just to defend yourself, I don't know.
They have the guns to defend themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, to particularly having an assault rifle, I mean, it's a little unnecessary to have. If you're worried about defending yourself, you can just get any other regular basic gun. If you need an assault rifle, it's not like a zombie apocalypse, like you're not going to war. Like, you know, it's just like stupid. I think it's kind of like a either you're obsessed with guns and you just like the guns and you just want a collection of it, or for the people that like actually walk down the street threatening people with these assault rifles, it's just like stupid. Like I don't know, it's just like I'm trying to think of the right word to say. Like it just kind of seems like someone flashing off a big heart or something. It's just like unnecessary.
Thank you. I want to get to the issue of guns and what they say about the United States, because I want to talk. I really want to zero in on these frontier values. So, in the United States, the gun ownership is 88 guns per 100 people. Right? There's about 300 million guns in America, and there's about 300 million people. Among the countries of the world, if you rank them in terms of gun ownership, the next in line is Yemen at 55 guns per 100 citizens. There is something kind of different. There's a lot of things that are different between Yemen and the United States, but there is one notable social difference right now. Does anybody know what's going on in Yemen?
Like
War.
They have a civil war. They're in the middle of a civil war. So that kind of gun ownership is kind of understandable in a way. I mean, they're at war, right? We're not.
We don't have any
Yet.
one person that we're fighting. So
we haven't had like a war on our own land for like since the Civil War. Like we don't fight in our own land. We mess up other people. Like
Felix, you got kind of cut off. Could you repeat what you said, please?
I said that like we are not currently at war. Like we don't need to like with the idea of defending yourself from people specifically. It's like we aren't at war. That's not gonna be like some soldier breaking into your house right now. Like chill out. Like we don't like war. Like guns are to some people like imperative to winning a war, like having firearms, because that's just the way war works in modern society, I guess. But like we aren't at war. we don't need them. We don't need the semi-automatic firearms.
Good. I'm going to thank you. I'm going to pause for a second here and give I'm going to give our international students a second to ask any questions, or anybody. Would anybody like to ask any questions about all the guns? This is often where the international students kind of interject. So
I heard that I heard a saying said that why American has so many guns is because when others has gone, just make more people want to have gun. So
let me see if I heard you correctly. So Ruby, you said you've heard that white Americans have guns because they get concerned about other minorities?
No. It's like, mm, mhm.
You can
Uh,
put it in the chat if you want. You can put the
okay.
question in the chat. Any other questions while she's busy with hers?
I wanted to like make a comment about like
Yeah.
Phoenix, Arizona culture is like, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with like the gun thing, but um, I'm I think the reason why everyone has a gun in Arizona is because everyone else has a gun too. Does that make sense? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
common
that's
thing.
what I want to say.
Yeah. So like the common thing in Arizona is like it's a known thing that like if you honk at someone, like probably like I mean in Phoenix, it like if you honk at someone, like probably like 6 out of 10 times, like someone's gonna flash a gun at you or like shoot. So like I think like a lot of people like know that and like know how like the twacked people here are, so they carry guns for the like to protect themselves from those people. So like earlier when I was saying like to protect yourself, like I'm not saying like from like I don't know, from like those people. I think that's why everyone has a gun.
Good. Naima and I believe Max raised the issue that the origins of our gun culture, at least in part, are due to this idea that the populace should be armed against tyrannical government. And that does seem to be in part true, because the early Americans, you were forced to be part of a militia that, and there was a lot of concern about the central government. But following the point that Anne says, there's an NRA saying, and I just put in the chat, an armed society is a polite society. So I guess that means Phoenix must be incredibly polite. I should probably move there because Baltimore's not polite. So is Phoenix extremely polite? And I bet, and I'm just going to poke at Felix because I know he's in gun country. He must be very polite.
Oh, absolutely, because my grandfather is a member of the NRA and has disowned me for living a different lifestyle. He's incredibly polite.
And you started to say something.
I was gonna say that like Arizona people, I wouldn't say that they're polite. They're just kind of like dumb. Like they're just dumb in the sense of like no one talks to each other. It's super spread out here. There's not really a sense of community. No one's really working together. Like it's honestly the complete opposite of Baltimore. And I mean, I'm from here, but I moved like the day after I graduated high school. So I mean, I didn't really spend like any of my like true adult years here, but I've been here for a while.
Here? Where are you?
Oh, I'm in Arizona.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, yeah, so now that I'm here, and I've been here for like a little bit, it's kind of funny to like see that like register the people of Arizona, but I just think like everyone's like really distant. They're like, I don't really want to talk to anyone or like get along.
That's polite.
I guess like mindfulness polite, like not really getting in other people's way unless someone else gets in your
Would
way.
you show us your gun? Do you have your gun handy?
I don't. This is not a gun household.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood.
No. My father lives in like the gayest neighborhood of downtown Phoenix, so like we're good. Like,
Naima is from New York, very impolite. I think they need guns. What do you think, Naima?
Sorry, my mom's doing her job.
Oh my goodness.
Absolutely not. I feel like there's such a huge population that if everybody had a gun in New York City, it would just create, it would just lead to more death. And New Yorkers are polite to each other. We all get each other's vibes. We're only rude to tourists. So yeah.
I feel New York culture, like Northern culture, is definitely different from Southern culture. Like we won't smile at you on the street, but like we also won't shoot you in the face. So
that's pretty good. I think I would take that. I think Ruby's nervous now. Can anybody make Ruby feel better by coming to Baltimore?
I don't know.
Or should we recommend what gun she should get?
Yeah, I mean, I'm from here, so I'm in the city. It's not bad. Baltimore is really a city where, as long as you're minding your business, you're good. Don't get in anybody else's situation. Just keep about your day. And I'm not gonna say that for everything. People aren't people. Not everybody here has issues. Most people are not. But again, it's just a situation of do what you're doing. Don't worry about what somebody else is doing, and there won't be any issues between anybody.
Yeah.
That's all it really is. And then just know your areas, honestly.
My mom just tells me to just not like walk at night. I think generally a lot of people don't do that, as a heads up.
Yeah, that she is giving you some advice for that. And if you are, just, be with a group of friends.
Well, what if you had a gun?
In Baltimore?
Yeah. Like how about if you just put like if you took an AR-15 and strapped it around your shoulder?
No. Baltimore is full of too many people who would take advantage of that. It's not. I'm glad that we are not an open carry state because that just would not go well. I mean, but here there are already people who have access, illegally. So making it, if the decision was made for it to be open carry, that wouldn't be pretty.
But the NRA says that guns deter. They deter crime.
That's a lie.
Closet.
Why? What's wrong? What's wrong with the logic here, everybody?
I don't feel like everybody is mentally capable of owning a gun.
I'm not mentally stable enough to own a gun, which is why I don't. And also because I don't need one.
Mike should hand it out in your orientation pack. What do you think?
Because even if you don't own a gun, you're still able to use something else as a weapon. So the idea of saying that, guns create a more civil society, that is a lie, because in today's time, you can use anything as a weapon. So, even if you don't have a gun, you can have a knife. And, so is that to say, knives make a society civil? Like that, it sounds stupid. It sounds stupid with the idea that a weapon can create peace in an area.
Yeah, one of the NRA stickers I've seen says "Guns save lives." They also kill.
They're literally killer machines. I don't know what else to say about that.
They were designed to cause death. That is why they were created. Because people were like, you know what? Like, just my fists and just these.
It's not enough.
It's not enough to kill people. I want to kill tons of people in a row. So I'm gonna build this machine that is literally just a death machine. It causes death.
It's just very weird how they're just saying the more death machines there are in society, the better it is.
Max quotes another famous gun rights saying, "Don't tread on me." Whenever I got wrapped in with in America what we call the Tea Party movement, when you see it's a sticker of the snake, which was the 13 colonies, right? They were, I don't know, they drew them into the form of a snake and said, "Don't tread on me," right? Don't tread on us.
Luckily, I have changed my perception of what "Don't Tread on Me" is, because when someone says that phrase, my first thought is the Metallica song and not the NRA phrase.
Oh, good, much better. Well, my family is from Europe, and my dad's from Belgium, and they often say to me, "Oh, you and your guns, your cowboy culture." That's what the critics say about America. We're a cowboy culture with all these guns. Is
A
there
lot of the cowboys were gay.
I'm sorry?
A lot of the cowboys were gay.
Oh, okay. I don't know if you say so. What is the psychological aspect here? Is there a psychological aspect to having a gun? You know what I mean? Like, do people feel the need to be like cowboys?
They feel powerful because they have the ability to take someone's life.
It's I think it's a part of the power fantasy. I don't know, that America kind of construed it for us.
Power fantasy. I mean, if we have 88 guns per 100 citizens, that suggests that a lot of people are not feeling powerful, right? That means there's a dearth of powerful people are not feeling powerful. That's what I mean to say. This is like an epidemic of powerlessness. There you go. That sounds like a Metallica song. It's an epidemic of powerlessness in this country. 88 guns per 100 people. Why do people feel so fucking powerless? By the way, well, I'll just leave that one for a second. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Theo wants to be a cowboy. What do we have to tell Theo? Don't do it, Theo.
Live your dreams, Theo.
I feel like guns, like this whole conversation is really, really good. And guns are just a weird topic to speak about. But I honestly, like, someone can like disagree with me on this, but like, I think anyone who should be carrying a gun should be like minorities or like women. Like, I really do. I mean, if anything, like if I were to agree with the whole thing, I think like that would be the best way possible. But you know, like the world is kind of like twacked, so like it wouldn't work out perfect.
I don't want a gun.
But that's
I also do not.
That's kind of the irony I was dwelling on.
Okay,
here.
but like some other people could. Like, I don't know.
That's the irony I was kind of dwelling on, Anne, that you kind of jumped on there. There's some problem with, there's an epidemic of powerlessness, but who has the guns? I mean, the data tell us. The demographic data are clear. It's white men. They have the guns. Not those who really do, as Anne was pointing out, do seem to lack power as far as we can tell from the news.
Yeah, because the white people just need more power. They just have to have even more.
Are they nervous? Are they insecure?
Probably.
Probably.
I think, for lack of a better term, like I feel like I always call it like the tiny penis man thing. Like they're trying to compensate. Like it's like the guys in the really big pickup trucks or the really fancy cars, and they're revving them real loud.
It's
and
white
all that stuff.
fragility.
Yeah.
But I like tiny PP syndrome better.
Okay. Well, you said, I think Elvie said white fragility. I was also thinking male fragility, you know. I'm so glad you said that, Ash. My kids and I have a running joke. If we see a big old pickup truck with NRA stickers, that's the first thing my son says. Speaking, and Ash says, louder the dude, the smaller the balls. Has anybody here noticed pickup trucks that have like plastic balls hanging from them, like a little plastic ball sack?
I've seen that. I hate it so
I've
much.
seen that in my state. I've seen that all the time in my town.
My neighbor has it. My neighbor's had it for like 6 years.
You know what that means?
Why do you want saggy balls on your car? Why do you want that?
I've
That
only
means
heard
that-
about it.
What is it supposed to represent?
What is, oh, million fucking dollar question. I love you, Rachel. All right, people, tell her. No? Come on.
Men
Make
have
me
big
do it.
pee-pee.
I mean, it means the truck is the penis, right?
The shaft.
The truck is the great big hard red penis. Sorry to be so crass.
That's so much.
What? But
I don't know, Rachel.
it's a truck.
They're
I could drive
compensating.
a truck with the amount of proper learning.
I mean, literally speaking, Rachel, I was speaking in jest, but literally speaking, you know, I guess well, I don't know. Felix, you tell us. You see them a lot around your town. What do they mean? You got balls, right? That's what that means. Like, I've got balls.
Yeah, it does. And it's really funny to me because I look at that and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean by this representing like you have balls? Like you stole them from someone, or like
These are the balls of my enemy.
Dude, that seems really sad and pathetic, actually.
yeah. And if
It's
anything,
white men.
if
All right.
anything, I'm looking at this and it's like, man, like having a ball sack on the back of your car is kind of gay. Like, not gonna lie. And you're so against that. Like,
Straight men are very obsessed with penis.
yeah, I don't know why. It's like gay men are too. Just in a different way.
Let me talk a little bit about another symbol of frontier culture, that truck. I'm going to tell you a little story, everybody. I was up in, my dad has a farm in Pennsylvania, and on the corner of his farm is this little car dealership. It's like a used car dealership. So I was up there, I was walking around looking at the cars. My son is starting to drive, so it's like, does he have any deals? Smack dab in the front of the dealership on the crossroad was a giant gleaming red Dodge Ram truck with those gigantic wheels that prop it up and make it even bigger. And I started talking with the guy inside, and he says, yeah, people come from all over the country to this little dealership to buy that truck. They are in such demand. Trucks are the only part of the American car manufacturing. They're the only sector that makes it. Like the sedans, nope. They can't compete with Toyota. It's the truck. And then right next to them in the parking lot on the corner were Jeeps. And I could not get over how expensive these Jeeps were. And I've often wondered about the popularity of the Jeep. You all have seen these ads, right? Where, you know, why do you need a Jeep? Well, you're driving along and then, I don't know, there's a tornado and you're like, oh shit, there's the Grand Canyon. I better drive it, you know? Like, what the fuck do you need this for? What the hell do you need a truck for?
I will say it is practical.
Goddamn
And, like,
truck.
Where I'm from, Jeeps and trucks are practical because of the terrain and because there's a lot of people that farm here. But everywhere else, it doesn't make much sense.
I don't know. I mean, about four-wheel drive cars, you know, those things made their influx in the East Coast only about 20 years ago. Before that, we were all driving sedans. And I've had this conversation with people from northern states before. They tell you, you know, four-wheel drive, they don't make you drive better in the snow. They make you drive more reckless. And they explained to me, like, you know, you just have to learn how to drive in the snow. You don't need a special kind of car. But we have this idea that we need a specialized kind of car for everything we do, you know. Well, in particular, I'm just harping on these 4x4s and these Jeeps and trucks, you know. Hey, listen, trucks can be super handy. When you get to Micah, there is a truck that I think someone in our admissions office has a truck, and it's parked in front of Bunting, and it has a bumper sticker on the back and says, yes, this is my truck. No, I will not help you move. I always crack up when I see that. Several artists have trucks in Micah because it's handy to carry their canvases. But, you know, in broader country, you know, in the broader country, you know, these trucks are so popular, and I can't tell you how often I see them, and they certainly don't look like they're being used for what they were meant to be used for. They're pretty shiny. Alina, we have a Discord. I don't know what that means, Alina. I'm not going to click on it since I'm teaching here. Is this something I should
It's
know
a group
about?
chat for.
It's a group chat? Is it a group chat about what? Trucks?
Well, right now, yeah.
All right, I'm gonna switch topics here because we're dwindling in time. What I really wanted to bring to the fore here is this idea about how the relationship with the frontier in America is still very, very present. You know, in some ways, you know, we only talked about a couple symbols. I think the gun is one of the most galling, peculiar, strange, enduring aspects of that, especially when the Europeans call us cowboys, you know, or wannabe cowboys. You know, but let's bring it back to the major discussion pertaining to botany in Michael Pollan. And of course, as we were mentioning last week, you know, he has this interesting discussion towards the end of the essay where he goes to this orchard in New York State, and he notices, and this orchard is has all these apples from all over the world, but particularly in Kazakhstan, which is where the apple comes from. And these things look so strange. He says some have like leathery skin, some of them are mushy inside, some of them taste like a banana, some of them are the size of an olive. So much diversity, and yet that is not what we know by apple, right? So I'm going to clock this right now. You have 15 seconds. Draw an apple. Oh man, Naima can't find paper. Jesus Christ. I'm a terrible artist, the worst, and I'm going to draw an apple too. Wow, I did a really bad one. And we got anything? Put them up to the screen. There we go. There we go. Oh, yes. Wait, Theo, I don't see it. Put it in the light better. Oh, yeah. There we go. Wait. Ash, what you got? Let me see it.
I found a scrap piece of paper.
Yes.
I couldn't find paper, so I put it on my hand.
Wait, Mackenzie, what is that? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
that's commitment.
Now,
I love yours, Felix.
for everybody, with the exception of Mackenzie, because I'm very dubious about what that is, I can say for certain I know what kind of apple you just drew. What kind of apple did you all draw?
Red delicious.
You all drew red delicious, but Mackenzie, I don't know. What is that? Let's say that's a Macintosh.
Yeah.
There we go. Look at it. 99%. And I tried, everybody, but oh man, mine is so bad. Here, I'm going to put it up and, oh, look, see, look. It's pathetic. It's just awful. Like I don't know. I know. No, I'm not hired for this. Why do we draw the red delicious? Because that's what apple is now. And he argues that this is actually greatly impoverishing. He's very worried about the state of affairs. Why the worry? What's the problem here? According to him, what's the danger? Once upon a time, he tells a story in early America, there were hundreds and hundreds. Now, we're down to like 7 that are being sold and marketed. What's the danger? What's he worried about? Naima says the genetic pool of the apple is dwindling.
Diversity usually means strength within like species.
How so?
It's like the potato concept in like Ireland. They only grew one species of potatoes. So when a famine came or like a blight came and destroyed that one species, every single potato was screwed and then they had a famine. Same thing might apply to like if a disease affects like one specific type of apple, that whole genus of apple is screwed.
Good. Why the impoverishment? How about that? Why the impoverishment of the apple? Is it, first of all, I should ask this. Is anybody here in the mood for an apple that tastes like a banana? Or that's mushy? He talks about one that tastes like a Brazil nut, like a mushy Brazil nut. Yeah? Who's in the mood for that?
Hey man, I'm willing to try anything.
You are, good for you. Art students are fucking brave. So I'm asking the wrong people. But from your objective perch, your objective analysis, why the impoverishment of the apple? Why are we going from 200 or plus species to 7? We talked about the danger of it. Now let's talk about why. Why'd that happen? Or maybe I'll just put it this way. Why the red delicious? Why is that apparently the king? Why did the red delicious win out?
It's a sweet apple.
It is sweet.
It has pretty tough skin.
Tough skin.
Long shelf life.
Long shelf life. Anybody else?
And it's shiny.
Shiny. Pretty, relatively pretty.
Oh, it is crisp.
It is crisp.
They have this apple up in like in Seattle or Washington, I think. It's like the Cosmic Crisp apple. Has anyone tried it? Is anyone here from Seattle?
What kind of apples do you not like? Anybody?
Ones that are like mushy and they're like grainy and you can feel it. I like the crisp ones.
Did people like mushy apples once upon a time?
I mean, I will say mushy apples are good for making homemade applesauce, but like
Bingo.
I wouldn't eat the straight up apple, and they'd be good for mushing up for applesauce and apple cider, but not just eating the whole apple.
Nice.
My grandmother makes homemade applesauce with like, I forget what kind of apple it is, but it's like it only exists in like Appalachia. It's like a very small species of apple, and the applesauce is absolutely amazing. I wouldn't eat the straight apple because it's mushy as hell, but.
And what kind of apple is best for apple pie?
Granny Smith.
Why?
It's like tart
And
crisp. It's very crisp.
And it holds its shape. What I'm getting at here is that the apples that win out, they win out according to our taste and our needs. You know, what kind of apples? I mean, what were Johnny Appleseed's apples for? Everybody, remind us.
Cider.
Cider. What kind of apples do you need for that? Any old fucking apples, right?
The mushy ones.
If you are making applesauce, you have a certain use. If you are making juice, certain use. If you're making pie, certain use. You can't make. I would not recommend using Red Delicious for pie. It's not tart enough, or for applesauce. Okay. So again, the point is that our demands, our cultural demands, decide who the winners are. And Red Delicious won out, as did all these others, for the taste issues we mentioned, but also that other point that Elva pointed out. They have a very long shelf life. Very long. They can last in almost perfect shape for a very long time. Why is that so important to us? Why is that so important in this country?
Consumerism.
Consumerism? Anybody want to expand? No? One word answer. Everybody likes that one? It's our retail system, right? Products have to be shipped from Washington State. They have to end up in Texas and Florida. How long will that take? How long will they sit on the shelf? And when they are less than perfect, then what happens? What happens when they're less than perfect?
We throw them out.
We throw them away. Our grocery stores are absolutely awful for this, right? They don't tolerate spoilage or wasted apples for long. You know, there's one grocery store chain in particular that's especially egregious in this regard. I'm thinking of Wegmans. Anybody here know Wegmans? That's a Northeast grocery store. It's like an emporium. There's like a little miniature rainforest that explodes over the vegetables every half hour. It's like, you know, that should be a rainbow, like, ah. And I have yet to see a single spoiled vegetable there. I'm like, it never really occurred to me. I never really thought about it. And then 15 years ago, I had a student, a Micah student, God bless him. He would rent a van and go up to Wegmans and pick up their spoiled vegetables after hours. And I have to tell you, these things were not very spoiled at all, right? And he would bring them to the homeless shelters of Baltimore City. My kids tell me now there is a, it's not used for keeping it fresh. So then why do they do it? Just because it looks pretty? Yeah, okay. I heard that there is a service online now. You can get like fruit that's not, and vegetables that's not ideal. I forget the name of this thing. Oh, in apples, they call these seconds. The first apples are the ones they sell for human consumption for eating raw, and then the seconds are the ones that are like misshapen. You know, maybe have a brown spot, and you peel around them to make us out whatever. So there is now a service, but the United States, we are horrible in terms of waste. And I'm gonna share this with you. And I know we're rapidly reaching the end here. You know, Elva points out she dumpster dives. And I mean, unfortunately, or fortunately, I mean, that's something that, you know, I think a lot of us could do and more people should do. But if you look at this here, I want to share with you all something. So food waste, if you all can see this, food waste in the US is 40% of all food produced is wasted, 40% of it. 133 billion pounds. $161 billion of uneaten food and $1,500 per capita, right? That we spend, and when it is slightly, I don't know, overripe, we get rid of it. And of course, this is a greenhouse gas concern because of there is methane related to the landfills where these food scraps or these uneaten vegetables are deposited. Who's wasting the most food? You can see that actually residents are the worst. Restaurants are pretty bad. I met some of you, anybody here work in a restaurant? Restaurant people? Not yet. I worked in a restaurant. My first job, I was in college, and I remember, I remember the day, like seeing them throwing away like entire chicken breasts. And I was like this little annoying liberal, and I was yelling, you know, arguing with the general manager, like, a chicken gave his life for you, you throw it away. But it's, you know, so much waste. I thought restaurants would be the worst, to be honest with you, because everything has to be presentable. But I was shocked to see how residences are so much worse. That means we're slamming our fridges, right? And then forgetting about the stuff. Grocery stores are actually only 11% of the waste. Anybody surprised? Or does anybody have any related questions? Why are we so wasteful? What might fix it?
I think it's because people just don't think about it, and they're just not cautious about, like, you know, where their food wastes go. Like, I haven't been, like, when I was a child, I was frequently one of those kids who just wasted food because I didn't want to eat it. But now, as I've gotten older, I strive to, you know, finish all of my food, because, you know, people don't think about where it goes. And I'm one of those people who, like, I think about, you know, okay, you know, this is where the trash goes, this is where the recycling goes and stuff like that. And people just, they don't think about it. It's like something that's not on their mind constantly. So they basically just forget that, you know, okay, I'm going to throw out, you know, blah, 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 and, you know, not even think about maybe even composting it, or you have leftovers, give it to a neighbor or something, you know, or have leftovers and, you know, eat that for the next meal. You know, you don't, it's not necessary to, you know, waste this amount of food, but it's because people don't think about it.
Thank you.
think there's also like, I know in my family there's a little bit of generational trauma from the Great Depression. So like my great grandma, she had a rule that like you couldn't leave your like table until you finished your plate, and that was always a problem for my mom because she was kind of she didn't like the way that my great grandma cooked. But she would also have like a garage filled with like all these like foods, and then shit would just go like horribly bad in like the refrigerator and stuff like that. And so then my mom does that too, and then I do that too as well. So that we just like keep a bunch of old moldy shit in the back of our refrigerator because of this generational trauma.
And when it is less than perfect, it's in the dumpster. Anybody else?
I think there's a rampant culture of disposability in America. So there's a thing with a lot of products are created to be like seasonal. Like if you have fast fashion, so you're going around and like, you know, they're releasing new products every single season. And it used to be that, you know, you would go back to school shopping once a year, maybe buy a jacket or a few shirts. But now you're trying to keep up with the demands of fashion that was like created. Like this whole demand is created by corporations who want you to spend more money. And so they lead you to start thinking that things are disposable. Like Coke bottles, they used to be made of glass. You could return them to the vending machines, but now they're all in cans. And then they put it on you to like recycle this. So you know they tell you like, oh, you should recycle the can, but they don't collect the cans themselves to recycle. So it's more of the problem of a culture of disposability that was like that we were thrust into.
Good. Do you guys feel that food is cheap?
Fast food is cheap. Organic food is not cheap.
I was looking for this before class and I couldn't find it, but there are interesting statistics that point out that among the industrialized nations of the world, Americans spend by far the least amount of money on food, by far. The average European spends a lot more. I think somewhere like the average French person spends like a third of their income on food. And Americans, it's much, much less.
The bread price is also like fixed in France. So like if somebody can't really afford food, they can always typically afford that.
Mm-hmm. And cheap food also points to what? What does that make for?
Shitty ingredients.
Low quality.
Shitty ingredients. Somebody else was speaking?
I said low quality.
Low quality. What does that mean for us humans? Cheap food. What does that mean for people who consume it?
Low quality health.
For our bodies.
Yeah. You know, this is related to, this is why Michael Pollan's next book is principally about food and human health. I mean, we have a health crisis in America, right? The United States is the only country in the industrialized world where life expectancy has actually gone backward. That happened in the last 3 or so years. And public health experts say that this is related to a couple of epidemics we're dealing with right now, not even the COVID epidemic, but we have an epidemic of hypertension, obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. They're my 4 fingers, right? We have a real crisis on our hands. And Michael Pollan, for one, argues that hypertension means high blood pressure. That has to do with like extreme salt content. And so our, you know, the cheap food, what are those cheap ingredients? Well, those are preservatives, right? Those are preservatives that go into our food that make it last longer, that give it that shelf life, right? And related to what Max was saying, and I'll expand on this next week, You know, um, see, somebody brought this up last week. You know, this idea, this concept is not even a concept, right? It's a reality. These things called food deserts. And Baltimore has plenty of them. You know, in poor neighborhoods, where are you going to get your food? In many cases, the only place for them, the grocery stores are not doing so well, or they're entirely absent, or you have to go to 7-Eleven, right? Convenience stores. What kind of, that's not a healthy diet, right? I have a confession, since you all already know me intimately. I was a little hungover last weekend, stumbled into a 7-Eleven. They were selling these little tortillas. They were rolled and deep fried, filled with cheese. And then I bought a corn dog. It was bad. It was a bad scene. But that's what they were selling. That's what they have on order. Wings that look sketchy. Pizza, wouldn't buy it. Probably, maybe, but I wouldn't. You know, and then of course, what do we have? A wall full of sodas. We have a wall full of potato chips. What do they have in common? What are the basic ingredients? What are the building blocks of all our preservatives foods? And taquitos. Yeah, Lena, they were taquitos. And I wouldn't recommend them to anybody. I know we're almost done, but I have to finish on this point here. What are these building blocks? What are the building blocks of our snack foods and our sodas?
High sugar concentrate.
Sugar concentrate that comes from what? Where does it come from?
It's artificially made.
Some, not all. Mickey's got it. Corn.
Corn. High fructose corn syrup.
Ever heard of corn? It's all you see between Kentucky and California. Corn, as far as the eye can see. What's the other big ingredient? Corn is where the sugar comes from. Where does the fat come from? Anybody know? You'll also see it. You look from sea to shining sea. What is it? Does Mickey know? I'm waiting. Any farm people around here? What are you going to see in between the cornfields? No? This is trickier.
Cow.
What?
I'm thinking potatoes.
No.
Is it cows and like dairy?
No, you will see them as well, but that's not where it comes from. Soybean.
Oh, yeah.
Soybeans. When you pick up your Doritos and your potato chips and your sodas, the sugars come from corn. The oils come from soybeans. And those are the two most subsidized commodities by the US government. Do you guys know what that means? What are subsidies? Anybody know what a subsidy is?
It's like the government giving certain industries or companies or whatever some money to do whatever they do.
Good. So we started this conversation just now by talking about how in France, food is so much more expensive than here. There's a hidden reason for this. There's a hidden reason for why those foods are so cheap here. Do you get what it is? It's subsidies. Government subsidies have made our fast food and our junk food cheaper for poor people. And guess what is not subsidized? Vegetables and fruits. Okay? So our cheap foods, in other words, are artificially cheap, and our healthy foods don't need to be. So Michael Pollan has argued elsewhere that the subsidies actually need to be reversed. And I think he's very plausible in that regard. But I'm going to finish with this last point, and I do apologize. We went over a little bit. But what I really want to relate to, and this is looking ahead to Kimmerer for next week, is this idea of monoculture. The United States is a country that has been led into monoculture. What monoculture literally means is growing one thing, as opposed to what we call polyculture. That is something that Kimmerer is, oh, I misspelled that Kimmerer is going to talk about. The United States is a monoculture. We see it in the apples, right? There's not diversity in the kind of apples we're growing. Nope, just one kind basically, and a couple others. There's monoculture in the produce we grow. Anybody here ever driven through Kansas or Iowa? Corn as far as the eye can see, right? Once upon a time, those were family farms that had polyculture. They grew a vegetable garden for the family. They grew a couple different crops, and they would have a pig and some chickens and a cow. Now it's nothing but corn. And that has a kind of peril that is matched by the biological peril that Michael Pollan saw for the apple, right? Just as the apple has gotten poorer and more endangered through this lack of diversity, so these farmers are also endangered, right? What happens if you are devoted only to corn and suddenly the price of corn plummets, right? It's very, very dangerous. So there's benefit in polyculture in a variety of ways, and there's danger in monoculture in other ways. The larger interesting question is why did this happen? And this is where we'll pick it up next week, right? But something for you all to think on, how did we become a country of monoculture? How did we become a country that insists on a certain kind of product? That things have to look a certain way and they can't look any other way. And, that practices so little diversity in the way we eat. And I do realize that's changing thanks to some ethnic influence from different ethnic cultures, thank God. But this is the problem to which Michael Pollan is bringing us, right? That, our relationship to nature has become so strained that we insist on only, on a certain ideal, that is secretly dangerous and secretly weak. Okay. So I love nothing more than to talk about guns and farming. And next week we get to talk about farming. I think that's awesome. I'm already excited. I can tell you're not. That's okay. I'll make you excited. When I'm
Okay
done,
with talking about farming.
you like it? Good. Well, I didn't see much excitement. But when I'm
No,
done with y'all,
my grandfather grew up on a farm, like a family farm. So I'm fine with talking about farming.
I think farming's awesome. If you were all here in Baltimore, it would be so much more meaningful. But we get to talk about the Amish.
Ah, yeah, the Amish.
The Amish live right up the road from me here, and they are some interesting people, y'all. Practicing the polyculture. And I'm not gonna, for our international students, the Amish are a very peculiar American phenomenon. They reject technology, and they live on family farms. No electricity, no internet, and no interaction with the outside culture. And they propagate heavily. There are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them.
Can you type it?
Yes. The Amish. Look them up. Fascinating. They have, my dad's farm is in the middle of Amish country, newly minted by, I should say. The Amish have invaded his part of the Pennsylvania recently, and they ride in carriages with horses, and the men wear black hats and black outfits all year long that they have made themselves with no zippers, because that is illegal for them. And the women wear dresses and headdresses all year long. But they practice polyculture. Okay. Of course, Kimber will tell us that the Native Americans practiced polyculture as well. And so there are vulnerabilities that they are resistant to, and there is a very important ethos and philosophy underpinning polyculture, which is what we're going to get into next week, okay? All right, I got to let you go. I got to let you go because you have work to do, and you have free speech to think about, okay? So thanks for talking, everybody. Okay, And I'll stick around now. Anybody wants to talk about their papers, okay? Have yourselves a wonderful week and send me your rough drafts later today, okay? If you haven't already. And do your reading for next week and I'll see ya. Peace. Peace. Be good.
Can I talk to you?
You got it, of course.